Hi and welcome back to the Trang Nova channel. If you don't already know me, my name is Trang and I am a speaker and speaking coach for entrepreneurs like you to harness the power of your voice, to speak with magnetic confidence and authority, to be recognized as a visible leader in and out of your business. Today, we are talking about the differences in communication styles between the East and the West. The reason I want to talk about this is because your ability to understand and recognize cultural differences in communication styles is only going to help you to adapt more when you meet different people, to avoid misunderstandings, avoid accidentally being rude, and to deepen your relationships in what is a global society and a global business. The first communication difference between the East and the West is individualism versus collectivism thinking. In the West, there is a big emphasis on self-expression, personal opinions, and standing out. It is encouraged and admired to speak up. But the East is opposite. The East prioritizes group harmony, deference to authority, and aligning to collective expectations. And you'll notice this as soon as you step into these respective countries. If you go into Singapore or Japan, you'll notice that the train stations and on the trains themselves, it's dead silent. Everyone is so respectful and considerate of others so they don't make any noise out of consideration for others' space. But you go to America, or if you're in Australia, people will refuse to be silent. They will actually fight for the opposite, for their rights to speak up, to talk on their phone, or to play a video out loud on the train. You'll also notice this in family units and at work. When I was being raised, it was utmost disrespect to ever talk back to my parents. When I would see my grandparents at family gatherings, I would bow with my hands pressed together like this to show respect to authority. And I remember the first time I was exposed to people in Australia talking back to their parents. It was in the school pickup area, and there were these kids that were arguing against their parents, throwing a tantrum, and I was like, oh my God, they're going to get a belting later, because that was just something that we did not do. In meetings at work, everyone works together, everyone is working in harmony. But in the West, it is encouraged to speak up, to question the manager. And that actually leads into the next key difference between Eastern versus Western communication styles. And that is in regards to how direct communication is. In the West, people tend to say what they mean. They'll be direct in their communication. They'll be efficient and clear. In the East, we kind of tiptoe around the topic. We use implications and context to try and get our point across. And that's why there's a joke. If your Australian mum wants to tell you that she loves you, she'll walk into your room, give you a hug, and tell you that she loves you. But if your Chinese or Vietnamese mum wants to tell you that she loves you, she walks into your room, puts down a bowl of cut fruit, says nothing, and then walks out. It's much more of an indirect way of portraying love through an act of service rather than saying it directly. You would also notice this in workplaces or in public. If someone's being too loud in Australia or in America, then it's common for someone else to go up to them and say directly, hey, you're being too loud, can you please bring down your noise? But in Asia, in the East, we don't say that directly. We'll just leave hints and clues like making some side eye, giving some looks, or covering our ears but making it obvious. And through the lens of the West, that might seem passive aggressive. That might seem like a weak way of living life. But what I want to highlight is there is no right or wrong. There is no superior or inferior way. There is no stronger or weaker way of approaching communication. These are simply cultural differences that have been developed over years and generations that have become habits for how people show up and interact with their community. And your ability to be aware of this is your ability to understand and tolerate how different people show up in any environments that you are in. And the more patience and tolerance that you have, the better you will be at adapting in different scenarios to be able to maintain relationships with whoever you are communicating with. And then that leads into the difference between the East and the West when it comes to handling conflict or criticism. The West gives direct criticism because it's seen as constructive and conflict is more common. But in the East, people often avoid conflict. They will soften any criticism to save face. They'll often give criticism indirectly. And part of this stems from Buddhist philosophy, where a lot of the ideology is revolved around letting go of your ego, of your need to win or to be right. Therefore, there is no need to get into conflict. It is better to simply let it go and walk away. And this has actually come up in some relationships that I've had because there have been such a discrepancy for how we approach things. So I was raised to avoid conflict. There's nothing good that comes out of conflict, my dad always said. But one of my previous partners saw it as the opposite. If there was security telling us off for something, you don't just walk away. If you walk away, that's actually self-disrespect and letting other people walk all over us. In his eyes, it was actually the right thing to do, to stand up for yourself and to fight for justice and to fight for things being done in the right way. And once again, there's no right or wrong here, but this difference in philosophy and the way that we saw the world actually became problematic. It was so contradicting each other, but it was actually just simply cultural differences in how we handled conflict. And lastly, a key difference in communication styles between the East and the West is the use of silence. In the West, conversations tend to be continuous because silence is seen as awkward or it could indicate that someone's bored or disengaged. But in the East, silence is normal. It can actually indicate thoughtfulness, that someone's agreeing with you or someone's respecting you. Last year, when I was living in Bali, I did a water blessing ceremony at a temple, and it was guided by this elderly, wise woman. And I had so many questions for her about the ceremony. I was asking her, why do we put our flowers in our hair? Why are we pouring water over our head? Why do we put grains of rice on our forehead? And I was asking her all these questions, and in response, she would pause, close her eyes, pause some more, but then eventually she would open up her eyes, smile at me, and then respond. Everything that she said was pretty slow, but every word that came out of her mouth was extremely meaningful. She only said things if they needed to be said. Thank you, my friends, for watching to the end of another video. If you enjoyed this and you enjoyed my teaching style of communication and speaking, then that's just a little taste of what you will get in my Voice for Impact Speaking Bootcamp. It's my live, online, semi-private training where each week you will participate in a workshop, not only learning how to transform your speaking, but take things to the next and arguably most crucial step for your speaking development, which is practicing your speaking live in front of a group to normalize speaking under pressure and thinking on the spot. And then you'll get live feedback and coaching from me, TEDx speaker and speaking coach, so that you can transform your speaking presence for more confidence, clarity, and engagement. And that way you'll get to show up in your business with more visibility, more confidence, and more impact. If you don't want to just learn about speaking, but to truly transform your speaking for reals, then click the link below to find out more about the Voice for Impact Speaking Bootcamp and how to join the next rounds. All right, my friends, I'll see you in the next video, but between now and then, make sure that you keep shining your voice to fulfill your potential and to spread your impact.